Hey everyone, this is Jim
and Joelle of From Scratch Farmstead, and today we are going to share with you the ins and outs of how our family grew thousands of pounds of food in our first year of farming on our 5 acres.
So it's currently January, and about this time last year we were in a book club and we went through the book called The Resilient Gardener by Carol Deppe. And there was a lot of just new concepts and things in that book. I think we had an idea of what it meant to garden and to grow vegetables during the summer and growing season, but we really didn't have a great idea of what it took to grow storage crops and store things for the winter. And so that book focused on growing 5 things. It was corn, beans, squash, potatoes, and then also to raise ducks or chickens for eggs as a source of protein. So we decided to focus on growing some of those things this year.
Jim was reading this book and super excited and sharing everything that he was learning. I didn't read the book, but I kind of participated a little bit in the group. But so he was learning about those things, and meanwhile I'm scrolling through Instagram here and came across the 3 Rivers Challenge, which the 3 Rivers Challenge is a online Instagram challenge where people don't, for 2 months of January and February, they just eat out of their pantry and foods that they had preserved or in their freezer or refrigerator, and don't go to the grocery store for those 2 months. And so I was thinking, well, we could totally do this. We could grow enough food that we wouldn't need to go to the grocery store for a couple of months. And so I was having those thoughts while Jim was reading this book and being excited about the idea of growing all these storage crops. So as we were planning our garden last February, we thought, let's put a big emphasis on growing foods that will feed our family for the year.
So we had grown all those things before in the past on smaller scales. We had some squash plants and planted some potatoes and grew some corn and things like that, but nowhere near the scale that would last us through the entire winter. And so in the winter last year, we attended the Moses conference online and came across this session where this girl showed a method of growing called the 3 Sisters planting method. And so I was, just fell in love with it right away and decided that was the thing we were going to try. And so if you're not familiar, 3 Sisters are corn, beans, and squash. And they were grown together by the Native Americans, and they handed off that method of growing to us. And it's largely been lost in our culture today, but it's a really genius method. And it
was really cool because these women were Native American women, and literally the seeds that they were growing with currently were the seeds passed down for generation to generation to generation from when people were doing it in the 1800s, which is super cool.
Yeah, so this was our first year on our farm. We really had no idea how to grow anything on that large of a scale.
So that's what we did. We tilled up huge long rows that we did the 3 Sisters garden in, so corn, bean, and squash, and we planted 3 rows that were, how long?
About 150 feet. So we had the 250-foot rows of 3 Sisters, corn, beans, and squash, and then we did 3 more 150-foot rows where we had previously bought 50 pounds of potatoes, and so we planted those in those 3 rows.
Yeah, so that was kind of the bulk of it, corns, beans, squash, and potatoes. And then we had a regular garden where we grew a variety of normal summer crops, greens, and lots of random things. But through our other garden, we were able to, kind of things that we were able to store was about 80 to 100 pounds of carrots, 80 to 100 pounds of beets. I canned about 80 plus jars of tomato sauce. We got about 10 heads of cabbage. And so that is kind of the bulk of the produce we were working with heading into the fall. We also foraged quite a bit. So every day in the May and June, I was out there picking nettle and dehydrating it and drying it out. So we had about 4 quarts of nettle dried. I was also doing that with some other herbs, mint and lemon balm, drying that out. We were picking lots and lots of fruit, all the fruit we could. So we have tons of black raspberries on our property. rhubarb. We have a friend with a cherry tree, so we picked tons of cherries. We picked strawberries locally, and so we froze all of that, or I canned some, but we mainly froze all of that fruit. So we have, I don't know, 20 to 30 quarts at least of fruit in our freezer as well.
We also grew ground cherries for the first time, and that became like our instant favorite. Ground cherries are awesome if you've never grown those before.
Yeah, we froze a lot of ground cherries and canned some ground cherries to make a sauce. So that's the bulk of the produce that we're working with.
Alongside that, in terms of meat and raising animals on the farm, the last year or two we had been raising a cow for meat, and we had her processed in October. So we had a couple freezers full of beef. Built a Siskovich chicken tractor in the spring.
We can link to the book of that for that chicken tractor design.
Yeah, really great chicken tractor. So we had a mobile chicken tractor that we pulled around in one of our fields and raised 2 batches of broiler birds. And going into the winter here, we probably had about 25 of those left in the freezer. We also have a family milk cow, and so we milk daily and have plenty of milk and cheese and butter and yogurt. All the good things,
all dairy things,
dairy related, and we have about a little over 20 laying hens as well, and get eggs every day.
So that is pretty much our starting point of what we're working with. So all of that produce, and then dairy, meat, and eggs. So that supplies, I would say, at least 80%, if not more, of kind of what we're eating currently. I also tried to buy in bulk in the fall some other things that we didn't have. So onions, garlic, apples. I stocked up on those storage crops as well. So we have plenty of those in storage and in our fridge.
And we got those from local farms.
Yep. Yeah, that we got from local farms. And that is the bulk there. That's pretty much what we are working with heading into the fall and winter. Pretty much what we've been eating. And so we are not purists about this. I'm not like, I will not go to the grocery store at all, like we have. But I think the last time I was at the grocery store was in early November, and that's pretty much just to stock up on some pantry things. So we primarily eat gluten-free, but we do sourdough. So we get some grains, coconut flour, arrowroot flour, some, cocoa powder, and some baking things. We also, we buy honey locally, and spices I will buy from the store. So the bulk, I would say at least 80% of what we're eating is food that we've grown, and then, from time to time we'll stop by the store to pick up a few of those supplementary things. So the main difference, I would say, from this year to previous years, is one, we have all of those vegetables that we're working with. So basically we've just chosen that is what we're eating. So while we love going to the store and getting avocados, bananas, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those are some of my favorite foods, we are opting to not eat them this winter because we can't find them fresh locally. We didn't grow them and preserve them ourselves, and so, but we do have a ton of food that we have grown and preserved ourselves that we don't want to see go to waste. And so that's what we're choosing to eat, and we're choosing to not eat the things that we buy at the grocery store because we have a grocery store in our basement, essentially. Yeah, so that's kind of our setup of where we were at heading into the winter, and what we are eating. So what are we eating? We eat a ton of soups and stews. The foods that we have lend really, really well to soups and stews. We do a lot of egg dishes, quiches, hashes, different things with eggs and meats and vegetables. We'll do a lot of steak and potatoes sort of dishes, or hamburgers and potatoes, or meatloaf, or whatever. Lots of things like that, meat and veggies. And we just try to mix it up. We've also been doing a ton with winter squashes and experimenting a lot. So we love to make like lasagna or enchilada casserole, where I'll replace the noodles or tortillas with slices of butternut squash and use those instead. And that's been really fun. So we've just had to to get creative and to use what we have, to try not to eat the same things all the time, but to kind of repurpose them and use them in different ways and mix it up. But really, it's been so fun. That's what we have to work with, and that's what we're going to work with. It has not felt repetitive. It has not felt dull or bland. Like, it's felt like we're trying new things every day, and we eat really, really, really good food every day.
Yeah. We're not gonna lie, it was a ton of work doing all this. Spring, summer, fall, all really, really busy times. And we were busting it to get all this done. But one of the awesome benefits is that like we are hardly spending any money on food right now. On average this past year, we've probably only spent maybe $100 on food each month, and so
yeah, the most.
Yeah.
There's several months where we don't spend anything, and then we'll stock up on some pantry and spices and things like that. But
yeah,
it's pretty minimal.
So one of the questions is it worth it to do all this work? And I think our answer is,
for us, it is.
For us, yes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And we've loved it. It's definitely been a labor of love, but it's something our whole family kind of gets behind and is involved in, and our kids have just loved every minute of it. Being out there in the gardens, they love going out and checking if things are ripe.
Collecting eggs.
Yeah, finding fresh ripe tomatoes, whatever it is. And it's just been so fun to see how they've responded, and it really just teaches and instills a value for food, and we are grateful for what we've been provided with, that we've seen kind of an abundant harvest this year. It teaches our kids to respect the food, to not want to see it go to waste, to see it put to good use. And so them seeing that full process of seeds out in the field to coming into the kitchen and being on our plate and prepared is just an awesome process to see.
Yeah, so this past year was a big learning curve for us. And honestly, we've done a lot of gardening over the last 5 to 7 years, but never anything on this scale. And our expectations were pretty low heading into it. But honestly, the garden just really far exceeded what we expected. And so just to give you an example, we grew 50 pounds of potatoes, and we were expecting that to yield about 400 pounds. Usually here 1 to 8 sort of yield with potatoes, but we ended up with well over 1,000 pounds of potatoes, and
got a lot of potatoes.
A lot of potatoes.
Our farm that we bought used to be an old goat farm that sat fallow for about a decade, and so we planted into an old goat pasture that sat fallow, and it was very fertile soil, to say the least.
Yeah, so I think a big thing this year taught us was a little bit more of, okay, next year, well, yes, we are planning on growing, again, food to feed our family for the year. In large part, we will probably scale back in a lot of ways because we actually grew well more than what our family needs this next year. And I think another big thing we learned is that, at least for me, I really like growing perennials and foraging for things. It's just a lot less work to go out and harvest nettle. It doesn't need weeded or planted or anything like that. I can just go pick it, and harvesting is my favorite part of the whole thing. And so we're putting an emphasis on more perennials. We planted a bunch of fruit trees last year, and we're going to do even more this next year. We'll plant asparagus. We already have rhubarb, and just really try to grow the perennial systems on our landscape that will continue to come back year after year after year.
Yeah, so we're really excited just to regroup this winter, plan things out a little bit more for next growing season. It was our first year. We were just hitting the ground running here at our new farm, and we didn't really plan things out. We just bought a lot of seed, put it in the ground, didn't have a great plan of how it was going to go, what we were going to do with it, and we got a lot, which was awesome, but then we had to figure out what to do with all of that, and so that's created a lot of extra work. And so this year we're thinking it through, planning it out, really thinking about what we enjoy as a family, both what we enjoy growing, what we enjoy eating, and what we want, and what the appropriate proportion of those things is. And so I think we have a little bit better idea, hopefully a little better plan heading into this next growing season.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what questions you have, what you're planning on growing. what you've had success with. Yeah, we'd love to hear those things. So feel free to comment in the box below, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, so thanks for stopping by the farmstead, and we'll see you next time.